So open up to Book of Job, the art, the art of shutting up. Job chapter 1, and I'm going to read from the Message, and I'm doing that not because I think it's some sort of superior version or something. I know there are translation snobs that love their certain translation, but I'm doing the Message because I want to share the story in a way that is maybe less familiar. I want you to hear it as if you've never heard it at the beginning. So let's just pretend. You can close your eyes if you'd like. You could flip on the Message on your app. Job chapter 1. Job was a man who lived in Uz. He was honest inside and out, a man of his word, who was totally devoted to God and hated evil with a passion. He had 7 sons and 3 daughters, a lot of kids. He was also very wealthy, 7,000 head of sheep, 3,000 camels, 500 teams of oxen, 500 donkeys, and a huge staff of servants, the most influential man in all the East. His sons used to take turns hosting parties in their homes, always inviting their 3 sisters to join them in the merrymaking. When the parties were over, Job would get up early in the morning and sacrifice a burnt offering for each of his children, thinking maybe one of them sinned by defying God inwardly. Job made a habit of this sacrificial atonement just in case they'd sinned. He's a good guy. You're like, hopefully, you're falling in love with Job already as you read it. Like, this great guy has been very successful and prosperous. He cares about the right stuff. He's an honest man. He cares about his kids. He's praying for his kids. He wants the best for them, even when they screw up. One day, when the angels came to report to God, and we're not going to get into the theology of all this because that's a whole other sermon. We could probably do that another day. Angels came to report to God. Satan, who was the designated accuser, came along with them. God singled out Satan and said, "What have you been up to?" Satan answered God, "Going here and there, checking things out on earth." God said to Satan, "Have you noticed my friend Job? There's no one quite like him, honest and true to his word, totally devoted to God and hating evil." Satan retorted, "So, do you think Job does all that out of the sheer goodness of his heart? Why, no one ever had it so good. You pamper him like a pet. Make sure nothing bad ever happens to him or his family or his possessions. You bless everything he does. He can't lose. But what do you think would happen if you reached down and took away everything that is his? He'd curse you right to your face. That's what." God replied, "We'll see. Go ahead. Do what you want with all that is his. Just don't hurt him." Then Satan left the presence of God. Sometime later, while Job's children were having one of their parties at the home of the oldest son, a messenger came to Job and said, "The oxen were plowing and the donkeys grazing in the field next to us when Sabaeans attacked. They stole the animals and killed the field hands. I'm the only one to get out alive, and I'll tell you what happened. While he was still talking, another messenger arrived and said, "Bolts of lightning struck the sheep and the shepherds and fried them, burned them to a crisp. I'm the only one to get out alive and tell you what happened." While he was still talking, another messenger, they say bad things happen in threes, right? Another messenger came and said, "Chaldeans, coming from 3 directions, raided the camels and massacred the camel drivers. I'm the only one to get out alive and tell you what happened." While he was still talking, oh boy, another messenger arrived and said, "Your children were having a party at the home of the oldest brother when a tornado swept in off the desert and struck the house. It collapsed on the young people and they died. I'm the only one to get out alive and tell you what happened." Just literally lost everything very quickly. Job got to his feet, ripped his robe, shaved his head, fell to the ground, and worshipped. "Naked I came from my mother's womb. Naked I'll return to the womb of the earth. God gives, God takes. God's name be blessed forever. Not once through all this did Job sin. Not once did he blame God. One day, when the angels came to report to God, Satan also showed up. God singled out Satan, saying, "And what have you been up to?" Satan answered God, "Oh, going here and there, checking things out." Then God said to Satan, "Have you noticed my friend Job? There's no one quite like him, honest and true to his word, totally devoted to God and hating evil. He still has a firm grip on his integrity. You tried to trick me into destroying him, but it didn't work." Satan answered, "A human would do anything to save his life. But what do you think would happen if you reached down and took away his health? He'd curse you to your face, that's what." God said, "All right, go ahead. You can do what you like to him. But mind you, don't kill him." Satan left God and struck Job with terrible sores. Job's ulcers and scabs from head to foot, they itched and oozed so badly that he took a piece of broken pottery to scrape himself, then went and sat on a pile of trash among the ashes. His wife said, "Still holding on to your precious integrity, are you? Curse God and be done with it." He told her, "You're talking like an empty-headed fool. We take the good days from God. Why not also the bad days?" Not once, through all this, did Job sin. He said nothing against God. Now, the whole story unfolds with a whole lot of other stuff, conversations, drama, all that. But what I'd really like to emphasize here is verses 11 to 13 of Job chapter 2. You ever have a friend who's in a really crappy situation? Or have you been in a place where you're really hurting? You've lost a job, you lost someone that you love, you're feeling pain and sadness and maybe some depression, emptiness. You don't understand why this stuff's happening to you. And then you have some friends that come over. So now you got Job, he's got some friends that show up. 3 of Job's friends heard of all the trouble that had fallen on him. Each traveled from his own country. Eliphaz the Teman, Bildad from Shua, Zophar from Namath, and they went together to Job to keep him company and comfort him. When they first caught sight of him, they couldn't believe what they saw. They hardly recognized him. They cried out in lament, ripped their robes, and dumped dirt on their heads as a sign of grief. Then they sat with him on the ground 7 days and nights. They sat there without saying a word. They could see how rotten he felt, how deeply he was suffering. God, I want friends that would travel across the country and just sit with me for 7 days if I'm hurting. Not even saying a word. Can you imagine that? Unbelievable friendship right there. These guys show up, they travel from far away, and they're just going to be present with their friend, sit with their friend, not try to fix it, not try to give advice, but just to be there. The very presence of those friends says, "I love you. I'm with you. I identify with you in your pain and suffering." Does this remind you of Jesus, who sat alongside with those that were suffering? He can identify. We have a great high priest that can identify with us in our pain and suffering. He went through it. He wept over his friends. Jesus wept. Shortest verse in the Bible. Incredibly significant. Here is a God that is not absent or far off in our pain and suffering, but a God who relates to us in our pain and our suffering, just like Job's friends who show up. And for 7 days, they don't say a word. Guys, I can't last 7 minutes. I can't go 7 minutes without saying a word. It gets awkward after 30 seconds. You try talking to your friends and keep your mouth shut for 30 seconds after they tell you a problem. It will feel like an eternity. You think you do it. You think you're quiet for 10, 20, 30 seconds, but try to silence yourself for an entire 30 seconds or a minute after somebody explains their pain or their turmoil, just to be present with them. Here are friends that would sit alongside of their friend, weep alongside of their friend, tear their clothing, put dirt on themselves, and identify with their hurting friend. They called off work. They traveled from afar just to be present with this person that was hurting. God, help me to be a friend like that, because I don't know that I am. Many of us struggle to even send the empathetic text message or to take time out of our day to call someone, but we have a God who will never leave us or forsake us, that's there in our pain and suffering, that came, entered humanity, walked our streets, and understands what we're going through. And he sat with, loved, and identified with the hurting. And he frees us to do the same, to really love and care about the people around us. Now, here's Job chapter 4, verse 1. You got these friends, and Job breaks his silence after his friends are just sitting there with him, and he talks about his pain. In chapter 3, he breaks his silence. He cursed his fate, obliterate the day I was born, blank out the night I was conceived, let it be a black hole in space. May God above forget it ever happened, erase it from the books. May the day of my birth be burned in deep darkness. So he's hurting. He's just lamenting to his friends. I just want to die. Why was I even born? This stinks. This is awful. Now, after all he went through, and multiple times he refused to curse God. In fact, he was praising God in all of his pain and suffering. But finally, he's human. And so there he is in his pain and his humanness going, why is this happening to me, God? And then his friends speak up. Job chapter 4. Then Eliphaz from Teman spoke up. Would you mind if I said something to you? Under the circumstances, it's hard to keep quiet. And then he goes on. Now this is where they screwed up, is when they started talking. They were wonderful as friends until they broke their silence and felt the need to give Job a lesson or to try to help him make sense of the pain that he was going through. They were doing a great job when they were just simply present as friends, sitting with their friend Job. I stink at presents. I really do. Anybody else? You can comment in the chat if that's you too. I really stink at presents. In fact, if I'm with a group of people and then I hear my kids off in the other side room and there's noise and commotion, you know what happens? I might be there with you and you're talking to me, but I stop listening to you and I'm listening to my children going, what the crap are they saying over there? What do I need to do? What sort of chaos do I need to break up? And I'm hearing that and I'm just nodding to you, but I'm no longer listening to you. Or I hear a trigger word, right? I hear somebody say taco or Eagles or whatever. And then all of a sudden my mind goes over here and my body's here with you. I'm shaking my head, but I'm no longer present with you. I've left the room and I'm over here mentally. How many of us struggle with being present with people? In fact, right now, rate your current level of focus from 0 to 10. Where are you at? You feeling some distraction? Today. What's your current level of focus? Do you find yourself distracted? Is your head in different places? How much of what I've said already have you listened to? Now, it's very easy to get distracted, to have our heads all over the place, to maybe have been on your cell phones while I'm talking. You log into this thing, but very quickly you get sucked into something else, and it happens. We struggle to be present. And I think one of the things today, and in today's day and age, that really sucks us away is our cell phones. It really is. So one of the things that I read that has been incredibly helpful is in a book that I'm reading. The guy tells you to right now go into your cell phone, go into your notifications, and turn them all off. Turn off your email notifications, turn off your text notifications, turn off your social media notifications, and you decide when you want to go in and look at your text. You decide when you want to go in and look at your emails. You decide when you want to go in and check your social media. But if you're present with a person and all of a sudden a text pops up and your head goes there, You're distracted. You're no longer present. You're gone. It's as if you're on a date night and somebody walked up to your table and interrupted your intimate conversation with a person that you love. It's as if you're at work, engaged in some sort of project, and somebody swings your office door open, walks right up to the desk, and interrupts you. But we allow this to happen all the time. We do. We get so distracted and we fail to be present with the people that are right in front of us. We nod our heads, but we're not really there anymore. And it's become the norm. In fact, we struggle with boredom. There's a part of us when we're with people and we're entertainment junkies. We want other people to entertain us and we fail to be good friends. And if somebody goes off talking and they start getting into a subject that doesn't interest us, instead of being selfless and trying to understand this person, get to know what makes them tick, understand their likes and their preferences and who they are and what they're like, and become curious as someone that cares about the person that they're sitting with. We instead pull out our cell phones. I've seen it happen a million times. You're sitting in a room with people, and yet you pull out a cell phone and start doing this. I forget the word. I think it's called phubbing. I think the word phubbing, I think it's in a dictionary now, that it describes when you are talking to someone, looking at them and texting at the same time. Right? It's a real thing that we do now. We can sit in a room, and as soon as somebody becomes not so entertaining, we start texting and we look around like we're wanting to somehow pay attention, but it's super disrespectful. I do it. I do it. We all do it. If a moment in a conversation is slow, here's a quote, and I love this. If a moment in a conversation is slow, there is no way to know when things will pick up except to stay with the conversation. People take time to think, and then they think of something new. More generally, the experience of boredom is directly linked to creativity and innovation. Did you hear that? The experience of boredom, the experience of boredom is directly linked to creativity and innovation. Here, I'm going to put that quote up for you. I'll post it in the idea sharing page this week. But I'll read it one more time. If a moment in a conversation is slow, there is no way to know when things will pick up except to stay with the conversation. People take time to think, and then they think of something new. More generally, the experience of boredom is directly linked to creativity and innovation. Think about it. If your mind never has time to wander, if you can never sit there sipping a cup of coffee and looking out the window and allow your head to go in different directions and a creative thought to emerge, because every time that you don't have the space filled, you fill it up looking at memes, watching Bernie to see where he is in the Bernie memes that have popped up all week, or you're scrolling on Facebook, or you're texting people, or you're watching YouTube videos, or whatever it is. Every dead moment we fill up, and we don't take the time to just be present. We don't respect or love people enough to sit and be present with them when they're not entertaining us. And then I think one of the big lessons that we learn from Job's friends is that advice is your enemy. I'm going to say that again because it's so counterintuitive. Advice is your enemy. And what we're prone to do as Christian people who have these morals and values in our heads is that we want to run off whenever somebody proclaims some sort of problem that they have or issue that they're facing. We want to be problem solvers. We want to give them advice. We want to give them morals and values. We want to tell them what to do. We want to direct them in how to fix it. And yet Job's friends screwed up precisely at the moment when they became advice givers. You and I, we are not in the advice business. We are in the good news business. It's God's kindness that leads us to change our minds. Think about it. Jesus was oftentimes asked questions, over 100 times asked questions. How many times did he answer those questions directly? The answer is three. Three times. Three times, ladies and gentlemen. And so Jesus was not interested in answering the questions of the people and being an advice giver. He was himself the embodied good news of the world. He came to set the captives free. He was looking beyond just moralistic advice giving and looking to the deeper problems of here are people that are longing for community. Here are people that are struggling with guilt and shame. Here are people that are lonely and isolated. And so I've come to bring them life and good news and hope and healing. And so you and I, if we can take the time not to focus on advice giving, but listening, not to focus on advice giving, but asking questions to understand where a person's coming from, not to focus on advice giving, but giving good news in light of the bad news that people are wrestling with in their minds, their hearts, their world. Good news, not good advice. I'll give you a tip. There's a really helpful, this one will be helpful in any relationship. When somebody shares something with you, there's a pain or a struggle or issue that they're dealing with, ask them this. Do you want me to just listen? Or do you want me to pray? Or do you want my feedback? Ask that question. Do you want me to just listen? Do you want me to pray? Or do you want my feedback? Because I'll tell you what, there are times where I'm going through something and I share it with a friend and they get right off into advice giving mode. And I'm like, I've read 3 books on that. I don't really care about this person's advice. I'm too polite to tell them. But I'm talking to them as a friend because I just want them to be with me in that moment. Because when we're hurting, we want presence. But how often do we, when we hear our friends who are hurting, rather than sit with them and be present, we immediately jump into, I've got to fix it. I got to give them good advice. I got to tell them how they got to change this or do this different or fix this. And then they run off not only feeling the weight of whatever pain they're going through, but now they feel the burden of this stuff they have to do. So now they're carrying the weight of pain and all the advice that they have to follow through with. You just made them heavier, not lighter. You made them heavier. But what if we sat with people and loved them in their pain and wept with those who weep and cared for those who were suffering and shared good news to the brokenhearted? But we're terrible listeners, and I'm the chief of that. I'm a terrible listener. So I was texting with a friend this week, and they sent me one of those texts that had like 3 questions. You ever get those? Had like 3 separate questions in the same text. Hey, so did you read this? And hey, what did you think about this? And are we going to do this on Thursday at 10? So I responded to the, are we going to do this on Thursday at 10? And that's it. Because that's what I do. I scanned through, I saw the end of the text, I responded to that, but I didn't take the time to think through and respond to every question that was asked. And then this person a day later texted me and said, hey, Mike, when you did that, it made me feel like I wasn't even worth reading the whole text. It looked like what you did was that you glanced at my text message, read the last part of it, and responded, but you didn't even take time to think about what I was saying. It felt like you didn't even care. And you know what? They were right. It's hard to admit that. But how often do we not take the time to listen, to shut up, to slow down, to be present, to hear what people are saying, to understand where their heart's at, and then to care and empathize? Our failure to listen, hear me on this, listen to me. That's what this is about. Our failure to listen is rooted in a lack of love or interest in another person. Our failure to listen is rooted in a lack of love or interest in another person. Jesus was the best listener. I give you another tip. Eye contact. People really stink at this. You might have noticed that I've made a serious effort at making less eye contact. And I'll tell you why. Because I was told multiple times by people that I creep them out because I make too much eye contact. That it's like too intense, that I look like I'm probing into people's souls or something. And so I had to coach myself that whenever I'm talking to people that I'd say, "Hey, so how you been?" And I'd look away a little bit, you know, sort of glance off somewhere. That's why they say oftentimes, and it's joked about men especially, that if you want to connect, if men want to connect with men, they need to be looking at something else, right? Staring at a body of water, or sitting around a fire, or on a hike, or in a car, or something like that. But guys have a hard time opening up, looking into the eyes of another man. There's something about that, I think, sometimes. But we struggle with that eye contact. And to look someone in the eyes, not to be looking down at their phone as you're responding to them, but to look someone in the eyes while you're talking to them. For your face to match their face, for their sadness to be matched by your sadness, for their joy to be matched by your joy, for them to feel that you're feeling with them because you're looking at them, you're focused on them, you care for them. It matters. We've lost that. I think it's time to make eye contact cool again. What do you think? Now we need to practice listening. We need to practice listening. And so if you're up for it, are you guys up for an experiment right now? Is everybody up for an experiment? Put in a chat, yes, if you're up for an experiment. Come on, you up for an experiment? Maybe. I got a maybe. Yup. Got one person says yep. Anyone else up for an experiment? Some of you are like, I quit listening a long time ago. I don't even know what you're talking about. What's this message about? Listening? I forget. Yes, yes, let's do it. Thumbs up. Depends on what it is. I love that. Okay, so what I'm going to do here, and I'm sorry for those who have said no, you're probably just going to have to log out because I'm taking you on a journey, like it or not. What we're going to do here is I am going to assign. I'm going to assign breakout rooms, and it's going to be 2 to 3 participants per room. Now, if you happen to be a group of people, one of you from that group is going to go up to the computer and connect with the one other person on the other side of the breakout room. And I just want you to listen to each other. And I want you to listen to each other by asking this question: what has God been teaching you? And then just listen to the other person. Just take 2 minutes just simply listening and asking some follow-up questions. 2 minutes per person. Sound good? What has God been saying to you? Some of you are like, I am logging off. I just saw 2 people log off. Bye. Bye, everybody. We're going to try it now. You ready? Here we go. Yep, you guys talk to each other in this room. Jackie's here to say hi to you rebels that aren't in rooms.
I'm not in a room either, so it's okay.
She's in this room with me.
Yeah, oh, here comes Mike
Hey
back.
there. I'm back to you. You asked for help.
Yeah, we're looking for the question again, Mike. We weren't listening.
You don't say. The question was, what has God been saying to you?
Okay, we thought that's what it was, but we just wanted to make sure.
Okay, sounds good.
Then you
Thank
see
you.
my chat, Mike.
Yep. Or no, I don't see anything. Your video.
I was just trying to be funny, as usual.
Welcome back. You're coming back. You all are starting to come back. Some of you hate me right now for suggesting that exercise. Welcome back. I think most of you are back now. Good, good, good. All right. Hey, I'm going to give you a couple closing thoughts and then I'll ask for some feedback on that exercise. What you guys thought. A couple closing thoughts are just this. I think it's really critical for us if we want to be good listeners to come up with a change that you want to commit to. So pick one change, write it down right now. Put it as a calendar event that's recurring, a daily calendar event. Make eye contact with people, 2 o'clock every day, whatever it is, and create a recurring event. Or you could right now go onto your phone and turn off your notifications so that you're more present with people and control when you look at your phones. Or you could make a goal to share good news rather than offer advice. And you want to set a recurring event for that too, to remind you to keep your head in a place of good news rather than advice. Or set as a goal to focus on the person in front of me, not the distractions around me. Or something else, but set one goal. Set one goal. And I'd like you to put in a chat what that is so that we can inspire each other. So one goal. If you could put in a chat what your one goal is when it comes to listening. Throw that in the chat. For those of you that are watching this video later, peace out. We're all going to talk live here.